Gunhed is Compile's best shoot-'em-up, and I think the best shoot-'em-up of the classic era. It's a true masterpiece, and I have the wrong system hooked up. Let me just switch this over. Oh, this Gunhed. The Famicom Gunhed and the PC Engine Gunhed are both based on the same film, though as games they couldn't be further apart. The PC Engine game is one of the greatest shoot-'em-ups ever and a real highlight of the PC Engine, while the Famicom game is one of the worst strategy games I've ever played. I knew going in that it had a bit of a bad reputation, but it actually managed to be significantly worse than I thought it would be. The film Gunhed is a science fiction action movie that was supposed to be the big summer film of 1989 for Japan, and it bombed hard. It's a pretty bad movie. How bad? Well, the film starts with a long set of text that explains the background of the setting. Then it goes into a narrator explaining the background of the story. And then 20 minutes in, they have to have a character give a long exposition scene explaining what's going on. All three of these explanations contradict each other. Also, in case you're wondering, Tex-Mexium is actually in the original Japanese. That is not a bizarre translation choice. To distill it down to things that kind of make sense, there's a giant evil supercomputer on a remote island, and it's going to use the infinite power of Tex-Mexium to destroy the world. In the game, multiple factions send in armies of mech suits to destroy the evil computer and seize the Tex-Mexium. And yes, you're absolutely right that I am going to keep saying Tex-Mexium throughout this video. So it sounds like you're supposed to be attacking the evil computer, but what you really have to do is attack everybody else who's on the island. Up to 4 players can engage in combat here, and if you choose to play one player, then the computer just takes over one side. The first thing you do is drop your robot suits down wherever. And I do mean wherever. The computer's at the center of the island, and so you'll probably want to stay away from that for a little while. But beyond that, it doesn't matter where they are. Put them any place. Then on your turn, you can select one of those suits, hit the A button, and then choose where to move them. Hit the A button again, and they'll go there. Hitting the B button brings up a menu, and there you can switch to the big map, bring up a list of units, which isn't very helpful, end your turn, or save the game to battery backup. My recording session for Gunhed has a lot of points where I just stopped playing for a few minutes. And that's because I was going, surely I must be missing something. There has to be more to the game than this. And there was. One thing. And it's useless and doesn't help. After you select a unit by hitting A, you can hit the B button to bring up the menu, and this time there's an additional option. There you can choose to use the unit's special equipment. All units carry one of everything, so it's not really special. And almost all of it is useless. In fact, using some of it is actively detrimental. The special items are equipment that you can use on the map screen. You have to use these before you move also, and in some cases that means you can't really use them. Napalm randomly burns an area around your mech, so an enemy would have to be right on top of you to use that. Sonar detects invisible robots and traps. There's 5 kinds of landmines that you can set. One that drains the robot of all its energy, one that blows them up, one that steals their equipment, one that converts them to your side, and one that freezes them in place for 3 turns. These landmines require that a robot step on the exact square where you planted it. Note that given the scale of the map and how you can freely move through terrain without really any restrictions, you're probably not going to be catching an enemy with one of these landmines. On top of that, since everybody always starts with one of everything, there's no reason not to use the best equipment. You can also fire a long-range missile that can damage or destroy any robot on the map, and there's an item that protects a robot from this kind of long-range attack for 1 turn, which would just mean that the player would choose a different robot to destroy. But destroying robots with this equipment is actually a very bad thing to do. You get experience when you defeat a robot in battle, but not when you blow them up like this. And the actual goal of the game is to build up enough experience that you can take out the computer. Players have a limited number of units, so if you're blowing them up with long-range missiles, you're not going to be able to beat the game. The AI never uses this equipment, by the way. You can have up to 8 robots on your side at a time, and if you have less than 8 on the map, then you can go into your reserves and drop them anywhere on the island. There's 4 different kinds of robots to choose from: the average ones, the slow but strong ones, the fast but weak ones, and then the Gunhed, which is the best at everything. So maybe blow them up with long-range missiles. Each side only gets 1 Gunhed after all. When 2 robots come together, it's time to fight. And the first thing you have to do in every combat is assign stats. You can also decide if you want the computer to control everything, some things, or you to handle everything. I do not recommend letting the computer control anything. The stats affect how you perform in combat, and what it really comes down to is sometimes your robot just doesn't work. They'll stutter in place, they'll jump around, they won't shoot. Robot combat is just frustrating. Hitting the B button switches your weapon, while hitting the A button fires. And the best approach I found was to hit B a couple times so that you're on the cannon, run up to the other robot's face, and mash the A button as hard as you can. You'll blow them up pretty quickly. After the other robot's destroyed, you get all of the equipment that they were carrying, and it also goes through all of the parts for all of the possible robot combinations to let you know if you picked up a spare bit. So this is phenomenally slow and annoying. The experience you earn from defeating a robot is enough to give you a tiny little bump in one of your stats. It means that the most effective plan is to just have one of your robots as the fighter and don't use anything else. If you just leave one robot out on the map, everyone else has to attack it, and it gets all the experience. Damage can be recovered, and you can get energy from the various stations on the map. Just park on one of those and wait. Something to note in the combat is that you have a damage bar that fills up, rather than one that goes down. Just one more way that Gunhed is backwards. The strategies required in Gunhed are absurd. The giant map doesn't add anything to the game, except slow it down. It's not like you can bottleneck people into a certain point or set up a defensive position. And everyone is so spread out that the slow units can't do anything. But when you do get together for combat, the game actually becomes worse. There's lots of things in the game, but none of them actually do anything helpful. Gunhed is a big pile of systems that weren't good ideas to begin with, and then they actively made each other worse. At least there's one good Gunhed game out there.